But here's some really quite disturbing days. Another day and another set of headlines about teenagers and shocking violence. Here's a few that we need to address this morning. There's a Gold Coast 15-year-old, Abigail Corthels. To her parents, she was a normal, happy schoolgirl. But this dangerous new, what they call the choking game, claimed her life last month. Now, this is a new fad. It apparently has killed dozens of American teenagers. It's now spread to Australia. Also, add to this tragedy, this week 2 teenage boys were in court for allegedly killing an 87-year-old. They slashed her throat. And just yesterday, police had to use capsicum spray to subdue a 13-year-old boy armed with a knife at school. Now, of course, with now, as we all know, the 14-year-old in Australia in Bali on drug charges. So what on earth is going on with our teenagers? For their take this morning, Dannielle Miller joins us, as well as forensic psychologist Sandy Ray from Melbourne. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Hi, Sandy. Welcome. No, I didn't. Hi, Sandy. Yes, we have you?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Excellent. Got it all. Denny, if I could address the first one, this new game called the choking game.
Yeah.
You know, the more you talk about it, the more people go, oh, yes, but this is new with me. Tell me what I'm talking about.
Yes, look, variations of it have been played for years, and the basic premise is that you stop yourself from breathing, and during that process, of course, you know, you may pass out and it can give you a bit of a rush, and for some teenagers that can feel very exciting. And the problem is that teenagers are incredibly impulsive and risk-taking and thrill-seeking. Anything new can be appealing to some, and in this particular case, what we're seeing is that, you know, it's very, very dangerous. It can seem like harmless fun. In fact, it isn't. I remember even when I was at school, we used to play, I guess, an 80s variation of where you'd sniff liquid paper thinner and things like that and get a head rush, and we would have girls who'd faint and hit their heads.
It's not erotica. We
No.
have seen that in the past, perhaps some even associated with the death of Michael Hutchins.
Yeah.
It's not erotica, but it is a new and apparently quite popular game. Dozens of teens in America have lost their lives, and now this 15-year-old girl who's a normal,
and this
happy
is the
girl.
thing, we live in a society where information travels incredibly quickly. So via things like YouTube and social networking, games like this that may have been played perhaps in the past in isolation or in small pockets spread like wildfire. They're seen as exciting, they're seen as edgy, they're seen as the new thing to try, and teens will copy or mimic that behaviour.
And apparently, you know, there's 10 seconds of a high with the deprivation of oxygen to the brain. Sandy, as a forensic psychologist, the risk-taking that teenagers especially go for, fill in a few dots there for us.
Well, that's, I mean, you're spot on, and Dannielle said exactly what I would have said too, that one of the key features of adolescent behaviour is risk-taking, identifying their sexuality and fitting in with their peers and their group, trying to find out where do they fit as they make the transition from childhood to adulthood. And so this risk-taking gives rise to all these sorts of new behaviours that they wouldn't do under parental supervision.
Indeed. Also, which I just thought was amazing, we're talking the Adelaide case of 2 teenagers who are now facing court over the death of this 87-year-old. They robbed her, they slashed her throat with blunt instruments. This is extremely violent behaviour, Sandy. What are we to make of this, and how much worse is it getting?
Look, it's a revolting, particularly revolting crime, this one. And I think what we're trying to understand is what motivates these young children, and they are children, to do this sort of behaviour. And one of the interesting things that's come out of the literature is adolescent depression. And this is one of the really strong features of adolescent violence. And this is undiagnosed because a lot of the time we look at young children who have got conduct problems and they go, oh, they're just young, or they've got poor parental supervision or something like this. And then as in childhood, it then progresses into adolescent behaviour that is, I guess they have poor self-regulation, they're unable to self-soothe and self-monitor their emotions, they're very hostile, they're irritable, and where they get their, I guess, their sense of belonging is with another person. So a gang is 2 or more people together, and that's who they identify with. They've lost contact with their family, their social network, and so they make connections with other peers, and they're together, they're trying to form who they are, what do they do, and they're acting out, and this acting out, as in their violence, is escalates. And happens is I think what we're seeing a lot of this.
It's got to come back to parental supervision.
It
and when
has,
you've got
and also,
that sort of violence.
yeah, and
Danny.
also to add to Sandy's point about teen depression, often what happens then is that they almost self-medicate, particularly through the use of alcohol. So binge drinking is a huge concern, and if you've got impulsive, risk-taking teens who are also under the influence of alcohol, that's an incredibly toxic recipe. It does come down to parental supervision, parental role modelling, and good community role models, particularly for men. We've got a big problem in this country and in other countries as well, where boys don't have a lot of strong male role models. Even in primary school, my son's primary school, there wasn't a male teacher, even the gardener was female. So this is very problematic for boys as well. If you take all of these elements together, you do live in times that are more complex, and we've got a lot of young people who don't have adult skills to make sense of the very complex adult issues they're trying to deal with.
Well, also the reports this morning, it's alarming. The number of children killed in New South Wales, killed by their peers. Now, this is children killed by their peers. Now, you know, let's fast forward 5 and 10 years, Sandy. Where are we going with this?
Well, it's interesting. One bit of research that I was looking up this morning was that children who come from parents who have suffered clinical depression are 6 times more likely to suffer from depression in adolescents themselves. So what we're then getting to, in answer to your question, Kerri-Anne, is a transgenerational movement of depression and violent behaviour. Yeah. So the parents have disconnected. They're unable to supervise their children. The children don't have the role modelling, as Dannielle just said, and so then it rolls over. So it's this transgenerational movement.
There's shocking statistics. And listen, Sandy, thank you very much. You always try and make sense of this, and the choking game's such a new one on me. To get high from choking yourself, this is something that is just got to be stopped.
And I think parents really need to have conversations. They need to talk to their children about these sorts of things now and explain that it's not harmless fun, it is dangerous, and they need to be very mindful of that. Also, as a culture, we need to be mindful. We're talking about violence in young people. We as a culture really glorify that too. We really, you know, present a lot of programs on TV that glorify criminals, and we talk a lot and give a lot of media space to the sort of bad boys of culture.
Well, all I know that kids think they're indestructible. That's never changed, but we have to alter this route.
Absolutely, because they are. They're very fragile.
Indeed. Dannielle Miller, thank you. Sandy Ray in Melbourne, appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Kerri-Anne.